Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Book Review. In this video, I am going to review about Noam Chomsky's book on anarchism. You might be heard a word like anarchy, anarchism that is related to something chaos or mobocracy. Then this book is for you. Because in this book, Noam Chomsky sets clear what is anarchism and what is not. I would like to give a brief details about the content that was discussed in this book. First, anarchism is a political philosophy that works based on the fundamental belief of equality, liberty, and freedom. This may seem like democracy, but anarchism is against all powerful government. Anarchists don't believe in a centralized authority. Anarchism is against dominance, against hierarchy, against any type of authority. So all established political philosophies have a strong belief in a centralized authority, either in the government or party. But in anarchism, they are against any type of power or hierarchy. That is the main difference between anarchism and other established political philosophies. Then a question will rise in your mind. Then how the society would be? Who would govern the society? For this, Noam Chomsky had given a glimpse how the society would be. The society would be organized or collectivized in the form of community. The working principle is democratic decision making. This may seem like a primitive society, a utopian society, a non-pragmatic one in the current times. For this, Noam Chomsky said, in 17th century, if anyone said democracy is the best form of government, no one would have believed. But democracy was established and has been progressing for many centuries. So, with the optimistic tone, Noam Chomsky said, when the time will come, the anarchist society will be established. That was the optimistic tone of Noam Chomsky. And in this book, Chomsky also talked about the ideological warfare that were directed against the anarchist principles to suppress the idea. Chomsky said this was in full display in Spanish Civil War. So in a separate chapter, Chomsky extensively discussed about Spanish Civil War. In that chapter, Chomsky used his labor to refute the distorted history and misrepresentation about Spanish Civil War. He pointed out a vested interest to twist the history to show the heroes of revolution as the villain. Chomsky picked the work of Jackson and he pointed out the misrepresentations and distorted facts with the help of authentic information from George Orwell and Bourdieu. For the fact, George Orwell himself had participated in the Spanish Civil War on behalf of POM militia. So George Orwell had recorded the ground reality information in his book Homage to Catalonia. So with this information, Chomsky refuted the distorted history and misrepresentations about the Spanish Civil War. In the last chapter, Chomsky discussed about language and freedom. In this chapter, Noam Chomsky brings the classical thoughts of Rousseau, Kant, and Humboldt about their idea about equality, freedom, and liberalism. And on the same time, Noam Chomsky shows how the value of freedom, liberalism, and equality was perceived in capitalistic era. He shows the contradictions. Because in classical times, Rousseau said, the freedom is the fundamental for the human existence. But in capitalistic era, the freedom was restricted to private property. Like that, how the liberalism was perceived in classical times. And Chomsky pointed out how the liberalism was perceived in capitalistic era. Because here in this capitalistic era, liberalism was restricted to free market theory. So Chomsky shows the contradictions between the classical times and modern times. The value of freedom, equality, and liberalism in classical times and modern times. How these transformations happen. So there was an interconnections between language and freedom. This was discussed by Chomsky in the last chapter. If our readers want to know about the basic philosophies of anarchism, then this book will give a strong base for you. And Chomsky in his discussions as well as in the footnotes gives various sources that you can relay to build up your knowledge regarding anarchist principles. I hope these informations will give you a brief idea about this book on anarchism. Thank you.